Hello everyone and welcome to this latest episode of Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark. And today I have a video for you about fictional adventure stories. 5 fabulous fictional adventure stories for August of Adventure. August of Adventures even. I should know that, shouldn't I? And of course I could have chosen a lot more than 5, but I decided to go for 5 that I actually have to hand that I can show you. I'm sure if you have any other recommendations, just leave them in the comments below. But I'll go through these 5 and tell you a little bit about them. You probably know some of them, they're quite famous, but even so, if you want some inspiration, then here's some further inspiration. As you know, for August of Adventures, we are reading 4, possibly 5 books ourselves anyway, the we being myself and Shawn D, Standfast, and anybody else who cares to join. In week 1, we are reading Treasure Island. Week 2, we are reading The Lost World. Week 3, we are reading Tarzan, King of the Apes. And week 4, we are reading King Solomon's Mines, with a possible reading of Robinson Crusoe in the days left over for the month of August. But the 5 I'm going to recommend to you today, it's not an exclusive list, as I say, it's only because I have the books with me, are the following. So the first one I'm going to go for is a rather strange book, but it's also an excellent one. It is The Man Who Was Thursday by G.K. Chesterton. It is what is known, I suppose, as a metaphysical thriller. It is Kafkaesque at times. It is definitely close to, as I say, being a thriller with espionage-like activities, but nevertheless, there's a strong element of adventure in it, and it's probably one of the books that we can say is maybe a masterpiece by G.K. Chesterton. So let me read the back to you and see if it floats your boat. Can you trust yourself when you don't know who you are? In a park in London, secret policeman Gabriel Syme strikes up a conversation with an anarchist. Sworn to do his duty, Syme, I'm not sure, uses his new acquaintance to go undercover in Europe's Central Anarchist Council and infiltrate their deadly mission, even managing to have himself voted to the position of Thursday. When Syme discovers another undercover policeman on the council, however, he starts to question his role in their operations. And as a desperate chase across Europe begins, his confusion grows, as well as his confidence in his ability to outwit his enemies. But he still has to face the greatest terror that the council has, its leader, a man named Sunday, whose true nature is worse than Syme could ever have imagined. Dun dun dun. Fantastic. You know you want to read it. Next up we have a autobiographical novel. So although it's probably largely based on non-fiction, there is some controversy surrounding it, and therefore I feel quite comfortable putting it in the fiction section, although it is based definitely on a true story. And this is Henri Charrier's Papillon, or Butterfly. It's a big book, well, fairly big, at least this edition is. It's 600 and something pages. And you've probably seen the film. They remade it a couple of years ago. Not very good, I doubt. I don't really watch a lot of the remakes, but I do remember watching the old film with Dustin Hoffman and Steve McQueen, and that was good. I enjoyed that. Quite long though, if I remember rightly. So yeah, what can we say about it? Henri Charrier, called Papillon for the butterfly tattoo on his chest, was convicted in Paris in 1931 of a murder he did not commit. Sentenced to life imprisonment in the penal colony of French Guiana, he became obsessed with one goal: escape. After planning and executing a series of treacherous yet failed attempts over many years, he was eventually sent to the notorious prison Devil's Island, a place from which no one had ever escaped until Papillon. So I guess that maybe should be a spoiler alert. Well, no, I suppose you know he does because it's what the book's about. His flight to freedom remains one of the most incredible feats of human cunning, will, and endurance ever undertaken. Charrier's astonishing autobiography, Papillon, was published in France to instant acclaim in 1968, more than 20 years after his final escape. Since then, it has become a treasured classic, the gripping, shocking, ultimately uplifting odyssey of an innocent man who simply would not be defeated. Doesn't that sound awesome? Sure does. And of course, the whole experience is a massive adventure. So, I think it definitely qualifies. And it's certainly something I'm happy to recommend to you. Okay, next up. Next up, we have Anthony Hope's swashbuckling masterpiece, The Prisoner of Zenda. It's part of a trilogy, although the first book is not often easily available. This is the second book, I believe, and there is a third book which I will show you because I've got it here, but it's not. I can add it in, but it's counted as still 5 books, and it's Rupert of Hentzau, and it is, as I say, a sequel to Prisoner of Zenda, which itself is kind of a sequel to the first book, which name I can't remember, but it doesn't matter because, as I say, you can read certainly The Prisoner of Zenda as a standalone novel, and it's not particularly big. So I'll give you the stuff on the back to entice you into wanting to read it. In a battle of wills, he who dares wins. With his distinctive red hair and sharp nose, Rudolf Rassendyll, a young Englishman, shares a striking resemblance with the Ruritanian royal family. A burning curiosity draws him to Ruritania to see the coronation of the new king, his distant cousin. But when the king is captured by his treacherous brother on the eve of his coronation, only Rudolf can save him. Thrown into a series of adventures beyond his wildest dreams, as Rudolf battles to outwit his enemies, he falls in love with the beautiful Princess Flavia, who is betrothed to the king. He must make his choice. Should he save the monarch and be parted from Flavia forever? Well, we probably can guess what his choice would be, given that he's a Victorian gentleman, a man of honour. But you'll have to read it to find out, and it's great fun. Great fun. So, another strong recommendation from me there. Okay, next up, we have, again, not a massive book, but it's a little bit bigger than the others. And it's the only book this author wrote, unfortunately, because he ended up facing a firing squad during the Irish Civil Wars, and ended up sadly executed. And that is Erskine Childers, and he wrote The Riddle of the Sands. Fantastic espionage adventure story that, once again, I cannot recommend to you highly enough if you haven't read it. Erskine Childers, as I say, he was sadly executed. He was an Anglo-Irishman. He was a Protestant, although he did believe in Irish Home Rule, and he got caught up with all that stuff with Michael Collins and things during the early 1920s, once Ireland descended into civil war after the British pulled out. And unfortunately, he found himself on the wrong side and was executed. Though in a kind of slightly not so much happy ending, but a positive note, I suppose, in the end, was his son actually did become president of Ireland, and the first Protestant president of Ireland. So there you go. Let's have a look at this book, and I'll read you the stuff on the back. He set out as a sailor and returned as a spy. Tempted by the idea of duck shooting, Carruthers joins his friend Davies on a yachting expedition in the Baltic. But Davies has more on his mind than killing fowl. As they navigate the waters and treacherous shifting sands on board the Dulcibella, Carruthers learns the real reason behind their trip and how the safety of Britain depends on it. On a wild journey of intrigue and espionage, the two meet danger at every turn, encounter strange sailors and English traitors, and discover a fleet of German warships assembling amongst the Frisian Islands, ready to invade across the North Sea. Ooh, that sounds great, doesn't it? I want to read all these again. I might have to save them for next year, or at least some point later in this year. I don't think I've got time to read them all, everything in August. And then the last one is an absolute fantastic thriller adventure story by one of the masters of the genre of the late 19th, early 20th century, and it is Mr. John Buckin, The 39 Steps. Also a film by Alfred Hitchcock, a great film from the 30s by Alfred Hitchcock, well worth watching, probably available for free online because it's really, really old. So, read the back of this, I might as well. Hey, I've done the others. Chased by a killer, wanted by the police, Richard Hannay is on the run. He has been feeling bored with London life until he discovers a dead man in his flat, skewered to the floor with a knife through his heart. Only a few days before, the victim had warned him of an assassination plot that could bring the country to the brink of war. An obvious suspect for the police and an easy target for the murderer, Hannay goes on the run in his native Scotland. There, on the wild moors, he must use all his wits to stay one step ahead of the game and warn the government of the impending danger before it's too late. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, my goodness. If you haven't read any of these, I envy you. Absolutely envy you. This is fantastic. And it's so short, you could read it in a day. There's no excuse not to. There we go. So, those are 5 fantastic fictional, because of Papillon, fictional adventure stories that I can recommend you to read in August of Adventures if you are not planning on reading any of the other 5 books we have planned, or you just want something a bit different. Those are my recommendations to you. And to be honest, you should read them anyway. You should read all of them at some point, whether you read them in August or not. So there we go. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Do take care. Bye-bye.